I did a deep dive this morning into what this game is going to be all about on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, Judd.
And it is so interesting. Now, I don't want to paint this as being as important as a division game. And the Giants game was huge because you can't lose that game because the Giants stink at football. And if you do, your season's basically done. But this game on Sunday, if you do the statistical dive on what makes the Eagles defense go and what makes the Vikings offense go,
yeah,
the puzzle doesn't work. It's not going to work for somebody.
It's a rock and hard place.
It is yes, that's exactly right. Let me paint the picture and then we can, and if you'd like to join the conversation, you are certainly welcome to because the show is Vikings Ventline. 651-646-8255, 651-646-8255, at Real D Cunningham, at Score North, at Jay Zolgad, Zulgad. You can reach us via all of those ways. But here is the picture that I'm going to paint for you. We know going in, the Vikings, as they sit in Egan every Tuesday and come up with their game plan for the following Sunday's game, it revolves around right now, how can we feature Dalvin Cook and run the football, right?
Yeah.
So that's just your starting point.
Correct.
And then you go from there. The Eagles come into this game through 5 weeks with the number one run defense in the National Football League. They are giving up 63 yards a game. The Vikings, conversely, are third in rushing offense behind Cook, 166 yards per game. All right. So now we go to the pass. And how does that work? The Eagles are 27th in passing defense, giving up an average of 271 yards per game, 27th out of 32 teams.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that's not very good. The Vikings are even worse in their passing offense, though. They are averaging 191 yards per game. They are 29th. Now, Philly, and these two guys are on the injury report still, and I would take it, are going to be out on Sunday. Cornerback Ronald Darby has a hamstring and has been out. And poor Avante Maddox is still dealing with the effects of a concussion handed out by our old buddy, Andrew Sendejo.
Yes.
So the Eagles' secondary is not in good shape. And so if you're a Vikings fan right now, you're like, oh, that's awesome. Kirk can pass. It'll be just like the Giants game. Slow down for a second. The Giants stink at football. I'll go back to that. Philadelphia has 13 sacks on the season. The Vikings, of course, in pass protection aren't good. The Vikings have given up 11 sacks, and it got so bad against the Bears, who have a very good defense, that Cousins in that game admitted to, I think for the first time as the Vikings quarterback, seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
I was seeing things that weren't there.
Yes.
The Eagles they've got 13 sacks, which is good, not great, but they get big time pressure. Fletcher Cox has 24 pressures in 5 games, and the Eagles are number 3 in the NFL, according to our friends at Pro Football Focus, in quarterback hits. All right. So here's the talking point. The Vikings can run the ball. The Eagles can stop the run. The Vikings can't really pass the ball, but that's the Eagles' weakness. So even beyond, and this does end up on Kirk Cousins' plate, but even beyond that, are the Vikings at home going to be able to successfully establish a pass game? And can they come out and use Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, even maybe the tight ends, Dalvin Cook, the screen game? Because this game is going to be decided largely on that question.
So the one thing I think that could give the Vikings a little bit of hope, or Vikings fans a little bit of hope, for everything that you just said in terms of Philadelphia can stop the run. Philadelphia is a team that doesn't necessarily allow or does allow teams to pass because they're just not that good, is if you take a look at the Oakland game, it's a similar recipe. The Raiders are 6th in the NFL in yards allowed per carry at 3.7. The Eagles are 2nd, but the Vikings found a way to rush for over 200 yards against that defense. It's pretty good against the run. So if you can figure out a way to run there, now the Eagles are also better than Chicago in that category, who it's pretty clear the Vikings couldn't figure out a way to do anything against offensively. That's the downside. But if you want to look for a bright side, this could be a very similar recipe to what beating Oakland was. That being said, offensively for the Eagles, it's a little bit different story because they've got an MVP candidate at quarterback, and the Raiders had Derek Carr.
And I would think that the Eagles coming into Sunday's game, starting with Fletcher Cox there, are going to also apply more consistent pressure.
Yeah.
See, my question becomes this. If you have to rely on Cousins in the quick passing game, because if you get the ball out, you're probably okay. Their secondary is a mess.
Yeah.
So if you get the ball out and you're Cousins, you're probably going to be successful. But the question becomes, can he do it? And if he doesn't, and if he makes mistakes, or if he begins to see ghosts, and he's going to have to accept, and they are, as a big picture, going to have to accept going into this game that your offensive line really can't pass protect. And so your only alternative is to chip block at times, double team at times, but more importantly, look at Kirk and say, Kirk, you've got to get the ball out.
Yes.
Like you can't be, we'll help you all we can, the bootlegs, but don't be fooled. The bootlegs and all of those plays that worked against the Giants worked because the Giants aren't good, and the Giants didn't. The Packers set the blueprint. If you can do it, run a guy straight at Kirk.
Yes.
Because when he bootlegs, if you run a guy straight at Kirk, Kirk's going to probably do something at least one out of every 4 times that the Vikings are going to say, why'd you do that?
Yes. I think that's a very fair percentage of times that Kirk Cousins is going to mess up. And the Giants, their pass defense was worse than the Eagles too. The Giants,
well, the Giants just stink.
But like total yards,
yeah,
sure, it's similar. But if you look at yards attempted, like yards per pass attempt, the Giants are giving up 2 more yards per attempt than the Eagles. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. And of course, the Eagles are going to give up a ton of yards because they're not very good in their secondary. They are beat up in their secondary, and they can stop the run. So teams are going to have to pass because that's the only way they're going to be able to move the ball. That's why the number is going to look like that. I think that this Eagles defense is probably a little bit better than they're getting credit for.
Yes, and I think that the only way to exploit them is for Cousins to deliver the ball quickly. The problem too becomes this: can you, if you do that, and it's all based on the quick passing game, you're obviously not going to drive the ball downfield often, which was probably the ideal thing.
Yeah.
But with this offensive line and that quarterback, I don't think that you could consistently ask for that. I don't think it's realistic to say, well, the Eagles secondary has a couple cornerbacks banged up, and if we get the ball downfield to Diggs and Thielen, we're in fine shape. But then that involves Kirk Cousins actually having to drop back, probably be in the pocket, try and find guys. And to me, that breaks down very quickly.
Yeah, it does. It's not going to be something. I don't think that the passing game is going to be the recipe for success for the Vikings.
But it almost has to be in some ways.
But Judd, if they're going to find a way to win, they're going to have an above average rushing day against a defense that doesn't allow a lot of rushing yards. Like that's what the recipe is going to have to be.
How about the screen game then? Can you morph the screen? Can you morph the screen game into your run game, knowing that the run could work some, but it's certainly not going to be probably dynamic. It probably can't be.
You can, but you're not going to be able to rely on that solely. You're going to have to be able to run the ball if you're going to win this game. You're not, if Dalvin Cook has the performance.
But you got to get creative is my point. And you got to find ways to do it.
Sure. But if Dalvin Cook has the performance he had against Chicago, it's this team has no chance. Even if Kirk is going to be able to throw the ball, because that Eagles offense is going to be able to put up more points than probably just 16 against the Vikings. My question, that the only thing that could give this Vikings team an advantage is the fact that it's at US Bank Stadium, and this team is really hard to beat at home.
651-646-8255 if you'd like to weigh in on the conversation, that being, what are your expectations of the Vikings on Sunday? All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, being as realistic as possible about this, guys, what does Cousins have to be on Sunday?
10 being good?
10, yes. 10 being good, 1 being awful, you lose for sure. But knowing full well that you're asking him behind a line that's probably going to struggle at times, what does he have to be on Sunday?
I think Kirk Cousins needs to be a 7.3 for the Vikings to win this game.
It's very specific. Manny?
I was thinking about an 8.
What about you, Judd?
I don't know I can get him that high. I don't know I can get him that high.
I'm not sure I can get him that high either, but that speaks to my confidence level in this week's game.
Here's my ask. Here's what I think has to, if I'm going to ultimately pin a grade on somebody and say you have to be successful, it's the actual scheme and game plan.
Yeah.
Because you've got to scheme Cousins into being successful as possible. And now the question I keep coming back to is, if we're talking about the need for Kirk Cousins to drop back and get the ball out, bang, 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 my question becomes, at this point in his career, can he do that against a good team, against a good defense? I don't know. If the answer is no, you're sort of screwed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If the answer is, I just can't do that. I need to bootleg and then I need to rock because these are not going to be the Giants. And I got to be honest, in the Oakland game, for all the stats that you read, Danny, in the Oakland game, I felt like there was a large give up there very quickly by the Raiders.
Okay.
So, because the stats that you read make sense to say, yeah, it's similar. But didn't you, in watching that game, didn't you guys feel like after about a quarter and a half, they sort of said, it's not our day?
I think they realized they weren't winning that game. Yeah.
Yeah. But that to me changed that. I don't think Philadelphia is going to do that.
Well, I don't think they'll be in that position to.
Right.
I don't think that the Vikings are going to jump out to the same lead that they did against the Raiders. I think that that's where the equation changes. This Philadelphia offense is for real.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Wentz is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Howard has found a way to revitalize his career as Declan celebrates over there.
That's because Declan took him in the touchdown league and got his name wrong.
I know.
And we still gave him Jordan Howard because I think he got the name right once.
What'd you call him, Declan?
Yeah. What was the name of the first?
Jason Howard. Should have called him
Jason Hayward.
Should have called him Juwan Howard.
651-646-8255. Tyler, what's going on? How are you?
Hey guys, how are you?
We're
doing
great.
well, Tyler. What's up?
2 questions. First question, do you think maybe we're making too much? I agree with everything that you're saying, Judd, about the rushing attack and the rushing defense, but we have to remember the teams that the Eagles have beaten have been Washington, who is a dumpster fire, the Jets, who are beyond dumpster fire. They lost to Atlanta. Do you think that maybe the Vikings will be able to run the ball better than those stats would lead you to believe? Second part question, Danny, you said on air that you have notes on everybody that calls. What are the notes on me? Feel free to answer that at your leisure.
Thanks, Tyler.
Well, thank you for watching our halftime Ventline Periscope or Instagram live. I take notes on every single call. Like, I don't take notes on people specifically, but like
you don't
Tyler
put down like jerk.
No, I don't have like jerk or anything like that. But like Tyler called in on October 3rd, and he said that Stephon Diggs' attitude was a little bit diva-ish. But he can't move on from Diggs right now during the season.
Okay, those are good notes. Those are good notes. Tyler would be impressed by the fact that
Linda called in that day. She said she'd be sick too if she had to catch passes from Kirk Cousins.
Linda's a great caller. She always.
But like, yes, I take notes of every call that we get. On October 1st, Tyler told us to pump the brakes. Wanted to pump the brakes on the Kirk Cousins hate.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a notebook just
filled. So you're taking notes on the calls, not the callers per se.
No, I don't have down here that Tyler's a jerk anywhere, but like I have D from Budapest dropped an F-bomb.
That was a great call until D.
I thought the F-bomb made it better. But yeah, I have notes on every
satellite
call.
radio show would have been fantastic.
I mean, it was good for the streamers.
All right. David, what's going on? Thanks for holding on.
Hey, my take is I didn't watch all of the Giants game, but I noticed that they were doing more like quick passes than the first few games.
Yep.
Like slants and like shallow crossing routes. Do you think that can work against the Eagles? All right, I'll listen off air.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the call. Yes, absolutely. But I don't know how much stock I put in anything that they did against the Giants to work now.
I understand not wanting to put a ton of stock in against a team like that, but I do think that it is the more correct philosophy offensively for this team because of where the weaknesses are on the offensive line. I think that the quick passing game is something that should be emphasized more than it has through the first 5 games. I mean, if you want to take out the Giants game where they actually did it and it worked fine, but I said all week leading up to the loss against the Bears that was exactly the philosophy I thought they should have through the passing game. That's what they need to try and do each and every week. That's what their offensive identity should be: running the ball.
Yep.
And should be quick passes.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it should be quick passes to not just Cook. It should be it should go back to a little bit, and Zim's going to hate this one, but it should go back to a little bit of what DiFilippo did last year.
Yeah.
Because he did call for quick passes to Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. It should incorporate all of those guys. The other thing on Sunday that you absolutely can't have, this cannot happen on Sunday, is when you do get your chance at your deep shots, they all have to connect.
Yes. You
Because
cannot
this
miss
secondary-
Adam Thielen the way he did.
Well, and this secondary, you can do that against. There's going to be no resistance in this secondary.
There's going to be
basically.
some resistance.
Well,
I think
Sendejo is
you're
going to get suspended for 5 games for doing something stupid.
I think you're selling them a little short.
I think that the back end of their defense can be exploited, and when it can be, you have to do it.
And
so
also,
I don't want them to hit 1 and miss 3. I'm not allowing for that.
how much of their defensive numbers become diluted a little bit because they've been leading in a lot of these games. They're a team that's only got 1 loss this year. They're a team that's been fairly successful. They've spent a lot of time playing in front versus playing from behind.
Philly's got 2, right?
2 losses. Yeah,
Oh,
they lost to
Atlanta and Detroit.
Oh yeah.
But Detroit's not as
No,
bad
Detroit's
as we thought
not
they
bad.
were.
Yeah.
But they've spent more time leading than not. Like even the Atlanta game, they
Sure.
were leading for a good chunk of that. And that kind of took the running game out for the opposition and forced them to have to come back through the air. Like Green Bay couldn't try and run the ball against them on that Thursday night game because they were playing from behind all game. So I think that probably changes what their defensive numbers look like a little bit too.
And you still have Malcolm Jenkins at safety. Now he's not Harrison Smith,
Right.
but he's still pretty good.
Right.
And that could present some problems too.
Sure. But if you get, let's say the pass protection is good enough that you get 4 deep shots in that game. He needs to hit on 3 of those then.
Yeah.
And that pass that you missed in Chicago at home against these guys cannot miss.
Mm-hmm.
There's no wiggle room there. There's no, we'll come back and take a deep shot. Because I do think, Danny, you're right. The basis of this game has to be built around probably the quick passing game, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But then when you get those 4 to 5 West Coast deep shots against these guys, you got to hit them. Especially if
cannot
the
afford
corners
to
are
not
both out
connect.
again.
And with the quick passing game too, because I agree with both of you guys, like that's got to be the formula for this. Kirk's got to get that ball out. Even in the quick passing game, he's got to get ball out on time.
But how much confidence do you have for him to consistently do that? Because I agree he has to, and I agree that has to be the formulated game plan that they've installed by now. Like that's the plan. But here's my question is against the team. When Kirk came out after the Chicago game, I think this was for the first time, and finally said, I was seeing ghosts, because Philadelphia has a pass rush where you will see ghosts.
Yeah.
We all agree he's got to get that ball out. The question that I come back to is, can he consistently do that? And against a team that's not going to get a push on him, absolutely, I think he can.
Yeah.
I think he's got the skill. But when you're saying, okay, do it, and Fletcher Cox is going to be coming right through there.
Pushing Bradbury
Yeah,
back
and
into his
Bradbury's going to
face.
be in the third row of the stands by the time this play is done. Kirk, can you get the ball out? No, I'm not kidding.
No,
That's
I
why
know.
it's funny.
That's why. That's
I'm not
exactly why it's
joking.
funny.
I'm dead serious
That's
here.
why it's funny.
That's why it's funny.
651-646-8255, 651-646-8255. If you'd like to chime in on your thoughts on what your expectation is for Sunday. A good Philadelphia defense, at least their front is very good against the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. You can also check us out on Twitter at ScoreNorth, at Real D Cunningham, at Jay Zolgad, TCL Broadcast Studios.